one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Frost.
Here.
No.
Here.
Ben Joseph.
Here.
Chow.
Here.
Gorson.
Here.
Moons. Oh, here. Tyre. Here. Sure.
Do we have any correspondence?
None. That's reasonable. No, we had no correspondence.
Okay. So this is a point in time where we listen to comments from the public, if there's people that have comments. Would you like to go ahead?
Hi, my name is Vedant. I'm currently a senior at Stevenson High School, and my family and I have been proud residents of Buffalo Grove over the last 4 years. Last month was National School Board Recognition Month, so we would like to recognize you for your proud service and continuous volunteering work to make a great effort to make this school a great place. Today I'm here to talk about an event that is very special to me. It is an annual Teachers Appreciation called Guru Vandana. This event is organized and hosted by Hindu Swam Sevak Sangha, HSS, over the last 15 years across the nation. The Guru Vandana program provides a platform for students to honor their teachers for imparting knowledge and wisdom to them. During this event, we as students invite our teachers and pay our respects to them, and uniquely celebrating this student-teacher relationship. Us students seek blessings from our teachers and honor them in a true Indian tradition. For me, this has instilled the importance of the role of teachers in our life and appreciate their sacrifice and service to shape our future. During this event, each student will honor their respective teachers, followed by cultural performance, fun activities, and food. In Lake County, we have honored more than 100 teachers and principals in the last 3 years across 6 school districts and more than 15 elementary, middle school, and high schools. More than 150 Hindu families have attended this celebration. Last year, across the USA, Guru Vandana events were held in 24 states, 71 cities, and 113 districts with over 5,304 participants. On behalf of HSS, it is my pleasure to invite you and your families to grace us at the Teachers Appreciation Day celebration as our guest of honor. We will be hosting this event sometime in May from 3 to 5 p.m. And this year we are expecting 100 plus teachers, and it would be great if Stevenson High School could provide us with their facility to host this event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that.
And do you want to hand in your?
Do you think we could get a copy of
Yeah.
what you wrote?
Sure.
Yeah, you
You can email
it to you?
Yeah, just so we can get a formal request for
Sure.
the facility run.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other comments this evening?
Just to be clear, when you email us, do you think that you might know the date by that time?
Yes,
Okay.
we have the date for Saturday, May 6th,
Tentative.
tentative.
Okay. So we'll share that internally, and then we'll talk about facility usage. Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. I think now we're ready for the best part of the meeting.
Hi everyone, I hope all of you guys are doing well. I'm really having a great time because it is 50 degrees. And that 50 degrees for me, even though I'm from Florida, is summer because I don't know, I can just handle cold really well, and 50 degrees is like my June. So I'm excited. As you can tell, I am dressed for it. If I just take the blazer off, then we'll be all set, ready to go to the pool. But yeah, I'm just gonna briefly discuss academics, athletics, and arts because I really want to dive into the community aspect of this presentation given how many things have been going on at Stevenson. So specifically with academics, there's been Community College Week that's hosted by the CLC, so allowing students who are interested in community college just to learn a little more about that and what that looks like within CLC specifically. And then certain competitions as well, so FBLA, they took home over 100 medals at the Northern Area Leadership Conference, and students were named on the executive board for the Northern Area as well, so that was definitely a big achievement. Science Olympiad team defeated several international champions, and they placed first at the Ohio Invitational, which is awesome because all of these kids have been really high ranked and they were able to defeat them, so that's pretty cool. And then for the third time in the row, the chess team took home the state championship, so that's definitely a big achievement to recognize as well.
They come next month.
Next month?
Yeah, it just happened this weekend.
Just happened. Okay, and also another thing that just happened was the girls dance, or the dance team took home the national championship, which is awesome. A lot of different athletic accomplishments there, along with placing third at state, and then first at national. So I know a lot of them are really excited, especially the seniors who are leaving, to end it off with a big win. The archery team hosted a fundraiser for St. Jude, so every bullseye they got a specific amount from a sponsor. So that was a great way to raise money for that cause. Stevenson cheers, so they placed 7th at nationals or state in Bloomington. So another a thing to recognize. Okay, and then with arts, so some students participate in the all-state musical Shrek at U of I, and there was 4,000 audience members. So definitely a big shift from, Beauty and the Beast here. A lot of different members or people supported them and went to that show, so that was just awesome. And then the underclassmen specifically performed 3 productions of Romeo and Juliet, and I know that went really well as well. Okay, so this is a project that's new to Stevenson that NHS generated. We thought it would be a unique way to incorporate wellness to a good cause. So for those of you that don't know, the Nganza Center is a startup nonprofit that supports technology literacy in rural Kenya. So to the left are students who are using iPads for the first time, and the money that we raise or will be donated to this center as well. And then graduation, we have iPad collections, device collections for the center to refurbish and then send off for these students, because none of them have really any access to technology, and it's such an important factor in our lives. So we're trying to train them to get used to technology, teach them the basics so that they'll be able to be successful. And I'm actually one of the first student volunteers to work with this organization. So 5 of us from NHS have been tutoring these kids bright and early at 7 a.m. When we have the most energy. But yeah, it's been really rewarding to see. A lot of them have asked questions, seem really interested about it, because it's like a kid opening a toy for the first time. Like, it's brand new to them, even though it's been a big part of our lives for so long. So it's just rewarding to see how our tutoring has impacted them. And then in relation to that, we're hosting an event called Kilometers for Kenya in March. So we've just been planning out what that would look like. So it's gonna be in the field house. We're gonna have a lot of different activities, teach nutrition, bring in some food, and then have people run around the track, and it's kind of like a relay race. And the goal is to run the most amount of laps. We emphasize the walking because running scares people sometimes. But yeah, we're really looking forward to see how that's gonna play out. And I will update you guys with further information, because I believe next time I see you, when's the next meeting?
March 20th.
Oh, okay, perfect. So it would have happened by then. So I'm excited to see how this goes. We have a lot of teams signed up already, and yeah, I know. I'm so sure.
Just real quick, in the meantime,
Yeah.
if anybody is interested, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, don't worry about it.
I'm working with the director of this center, and he is looking for recycled iPads or computers. So if you have anything that you would like to recycle and not have to worry about finding a place, if you want to bring it here to the district office, I meet with them every month, and those iPads there are actually recycled iPads from Stevenson. So it's a really great cause, and this is the first time that these particular students have really ever interacted with any technology. So it's pretty powerful, and kudos to you for being a part of the program,
Oh, thank
because you're tutoring these students on how to actually utilize and
Yeah, use the
access
technology, exactly.
the technology and getting on the internet for the very first time, so.
Mhm. And it's been great because the first night that fundraising opened, this team already raised $700. So I'm just excited to see how this event is going to progress in terms of, you know, fun and funds raised. Okay, and then Saga recently held a masquerade ball over the past weekend, and we had 80 people attend from Vernon Hills, Wheeling, Maine South, and then obviously Stevenson. And over $1,000 was donated to the Kenneth LGBTQ Youth Center in Schaumburg. So that was just a great way to represent the LGBTQ community, along with raise money for a good cause. And I know it was really fun. They had a raffle, a costume contest, wall of Valentine's, and a balloon drop. So I know that group of students had a great time. And then S Factor, so these are just some pictures from S Factor, an event hosted annually by Kiva. And the hosts, as you could tell, they had a great time with it. I know a lot of them were practicing, looking forward to it, along with the singers as well, being able to showcase their talent to the school and to teacher judges. And then Chinese New Year, so there was a Taiwanese club and a National Chinese Honor Society collab, and they hosted this wonderful event. I believe, 400 people of all ages attended this event, and there was like food, games, you can see ping pong. So I know a lot of those people had fun celebrating that event, and yeah. Okay, so the Asian night market that actually happened this past weekend as well, and I know it was a huge success. I think more people attended that than they did a street fest, around like 2,000 attendees from the community, which is a large number. But I know a lot of people had fun watching the performances, food, singing as well. The club members that actually attended had a lot of fun doing those specific activities, so it was a huge success. Oh, and the proceeds made from that event was donated to UNICEF. And then just to highlight some student experiences, so I asked these students what are some fun things that they've experienced this semester, and this is what some students replied with. So the intramural basketball season was really fun this year. Despite my team not playing well, we all had a great time playing with each other. So way to bring the positive spin into the negative. But yeah, I know intramural is a great way for students to have fun doing a sport that's not competitive, but sort of is-ish. Okay. I enjoyed going to hockey games with my friends and cheering Stevenson on. My favorite game this semester was when Steven played Vider and went overtime. It was a close game, and even though we lost, it was still fun to watch. I have actually, this is my goal for this year, to go to a hockey game. I've been to a lacrosse game, and I remember when I was little, I saw this guy just smack the other guy with the stick, the arm just went ooh, and that was the end for me. But I know hockey is just as aggressive, but people are cheering, screaming, so I need to be a part of that soon. Yeah. Okay, and then back to the Asian night market. So the Asian night market was very cool and had lots of very tasty food and amazing cultural experiences. It was a great to see the diversity of the Stevenson student body. A lot of members from the community came to this event, and it was just a really great way to unify the community and the Stevenson student body as well. And then I am so proud of my teammates for the dedication and hard work they put into each of their routines. Winning the national championship this past weekend felt really rewarding, and I can't wait to see what the team does next year. So yeah, whenever you win a national championship, that's obviously really rewarding, especially when you put so much hard work, like the students said, into something that you love. So I bet all of them, people on the dance team, are celebrating and ready to come back to school tomorrow. That's it.
Excellent.
That's it.
Yep. I think I've talked at like a million miles per hour. If you need me to repeat anything, I will. I was afraid I would go over.
Any questions for Al? As always, love your presentation.
Thank
Love
you.
the way you give us a sense of what's going on in the school, from events to the student experiences. Really appreciate it, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you next one.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You guys are more than
Thank you for coming.
For the invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, well, if Alex represented
No,
the.
no.
Oh, what?
We have to open the door.
Oh. If Alex represented the best part of the meeting, as you said, this must be the second best part of the meeting. Second best. But we do have our monthly curriculum team presentation, and tonight we have members of our communication arts team here with us, our academic literacy team. So I'll let Doug, Lilly-Dalla, Director of Communication Arts, introduce his team, tell us a little bit about the course and what you'll be presenting.
Absolutely.
Clear away.
Absolutely. Delighted to have you all meet our academic literacy 2 team. So targeted sophomores, we have one that is targeted for freshmen, that's our number 1 team. So we have Christina Anker, Christy Kalouris, our venerable team leader, and then Dan Argentar. And they work with some of our most important students in the school, kids who are oftentimes reluctant readers and who need supports in order to move effectively across the curriculum, using literacy in ways that are going to make them successful in their futures. And so this group is a powerhouse group, been doing some fantastic action research, and I will stop talking because they have a lot of their story to tell. So really
Come
proud.
forward, yeah?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. So we'll begin by first, I do want to thank, because I might forget later on, Lori and Doug for their guidance and support throughout the entire school year. And then also my amazing team, which we are all a team together, and they are, even though I'm team leader, they are the leaders, and they really bring their expertise. And it is a pleasure. I mean, I'm not saying this because they're in front, but they are a pleasure really to work with.
Still not a national champion. Or 3-time state championship, just saying.
Tough act to follow.
I also do want to encourage this to be like an open conversation, open dialogue. Please jump in if you have any questions. Keep them coming, all right? We'll be able to answer those for you. So to begin, I do want to give us some background, who we are and who our students are. So you'll notice that we have 2 classes. It is a targeted group. We have Academic Literacy 2. That's a total of 20 students this school year, and that is a Tier 2 reading program. And then we have Academic Literacy 2+, and that's more of a Tier 3 program, where we notice students who are still not growing, and it's a little more intensive, the intervention. And so our targeted group this evening, we're about 31 students that we're looking closely. And if you take a close look at the graph below, you will notice that our most recent data, which is this past school year, the average growth for students who took English and AL had a higher average growth on their instructional reading level than students who just took English. And it is quite evident that this intervention is helping our students throughout their literacy and strengthening their literacy skills, as well as it's clear that our course is closing the gap. You will also notice that, I'm not sure if I'm in the right place, and I'm.
You are.
You are great.
It's fine, you could see.
I can see, I got it.
Okay.
It's hard to tell.
Classroom background, a little bit more. I bolded this part so that you could see the percentage of historically underserved minorities increase as they enter our academic literacy program, and from 36% to 57%, while the percentage of Asian and white population does decrease. As a team, it's been interesting for us to really pause and discuss and reflect on these numbers, and really also discuss how to better serve our students. And this is where we jump in to do our job, right? And to help.
All right, so, and So Stevenson has given us, and thank you again, Troy, for their awesome work, this framework to sort of understand how can we help build student agency, moving away from those numbers. What can we do on the SEL side to really help students not only get that sense of identity and belonging, but also get to that point where they can start valuing the subject and looking across all of their courses and recognizing themselves as a student of literacy and learning. So to do this for us, what we have done is we've looked at two different data points. One data point we're proud of and we've increased and really focused on the last few years is that idea of classroom belonging. We've raised this number, believe it or not, and we're really proud of this 71% where we're at now. There's been excellent sort of department initiatives where we've had a great toolbox where teachers can choose from and really help students feel like they are a part of a class. Something we noticed this fall when we were pulling out this data is we need to work on the sense of valuing the subject. While students are starting to feel like they belong in our classes, they're still not feeling as well as they really value reading and literacy. They're often the students prone to coming in and saying, I don't like reading, with their arms up, I don't like any book I've read, I don't actually read. So we're really working on that as a class, and we notice that in our data. So hopefully when you see us again in the spring, we'll have a different data set when you see us again. Our department, like so many departments around the school, are doing excellent things with making students feel as though they are part of the class. You know, whether it's for at the door, making eye contact with students right when they walk in, asking them about an interest or a hobby. This morning, asking them Magic Monday, you know, what did you like about the Super Bowl? What were your thoughts about Rihanna's halftime show? That very interesting announcement. Or even just asking them, what could you do in the beautiful weather this weekend? So we've had a great, excellent in our department, just compiling all these different tools and resources, and certainly in our team, like many others, have been using them. You're gonna see some wonderful sort of artifacts from the students and how they're interacting with some of these statistics. Dan's gonna walk us through sort of the academic side, but going off that SEL component, we have students kind of compile digital portfolios of their literacy throughout the week in all their classes in our class. But again, before they start looking at that academic side, we want students to really thinking about that wheel, that template, think about, okay, how does this impact my identity? How does my identity, my interests, how are they represented in my valuing of this subject as a student of literacy? So you can see some of their covers, rooting for Michigan State, or liking sushi, or playing the violin.
Try to step in because I don't want the video to start playing, so I'm gonna just move over it from there, but take that.
Okay,
And then I'll try to.
so this is the fun part because you get to see actual student product and really what we're doing with this digital portfolio. Earlier in the year, so you've heard about our students, they're not very school, a lot of them, there's a different profile every year, obviously, but these are 30 kids out of 1,000 that we're identifying as not growing, and we want to really kickstart. They come in at different places, we want to meet them where they are. And so we're going to show you two different students. One coming in, struggling, not valuing necessarily the classroom, another coming in and knowing a little bit higher, hey, this is important, I've got it, but still not really sure what literacy means and what it means to be a student that really comes in here and keeps up and works hard across the curriculum. So we have our two students early on in the year, we asked them, hey, what does successful literacy look like to you? And hopefully this works for you.
Writing helps you. Reading and writing is important because when you're reading something, you should be able to understand what you're reading. And when you're writing something, you should be able to, like when you're writing something, whether it's coming from a book or whatever you're reading, you should be able to understand what you're going to be writing about. And it helps you get somewhere in life. Yeah, okay, bye.
Not a lot there, right? Like, we're really not sure what it means. We're a sophomore. What is literacy? Reading, understanding? I mean, things they've probably heard year after year, but really when they're here in 5 different classes and being asked to do all of the amazing things that our teachers ask them to do, that's not a lot in terms of recognizing skills.
A good / literacy student. One way to be a successful literacy student is either to participate more, or ask a lot of questions, or speak up more. And what makes a good reader or a writer is you just what's it called? Start just practice writing on your own time, on your free time. Reading, to be a better reader is just to read 15 minutes a day. Yeah.
Reading 15 minutes a day. So it was important for us to see what our kids are looking at in terms of successful literacy, because if we really want, and then we notice this number of 60%, right? They don't get it, right? They don't understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and if they're not buying in, we can't help them. They need to trust us. We need to help them buy in and see why they're here and why they're doing what they're doing. Now, the struggling student, this is actual from their portfolio. So we developed this idea that, hey, we're gonna create running slides, a digital portfolio, every 3 weeks. And this was the beginning, we were just finding, so this one's a 6-week. Every 3 weeks, we're going to ask the kids and tell us, across your day, where are you using literacy? What's going on? And we go over skills. They have a slide in their portfolio, different skills in their toolbox. And this was student A. 6 weeks in, I've got nothing. And so through conferencing, through talking about things, we start. Did I do that?
No, you got it.
All right. No, it's okay. She's probably, anyway, so through conferencing and what have you, we're trying to improve upon their recognition and their use of skills across the curriculum. This student, through that process, went backwards, actually grew, right? Oh, I can start identifying where I'm using skills. Now, identifying is one part of the process, but when I ask them to, okay, you see a lot of English here. This is English, this is English, this is English, this is English. You have other classes. We have 1 notes from biology. Where else are we seeing it? We still struggled to find variety, but this one particular student was really proud because she, this is, you can't see the colors as much, but this is actually a green box. They track their weekly reading. We try and up the pages because we know that reading more is going to help them. They're encountering more words, their fluency and everything. She met her page goal for the first time. And this was, 2 months, 2.5 months into the school year. She was so proud she put this on there. But you can see there's a lot of reading in the book here. We want to push variety. But she was growing. She was recognizing. She was doing stuff where she wasn't before. Student B, and she continued. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Student B, that's him. Student B, the same, but starts off at a different place. He has an idea. He has some idea of where he's seeing his literacy. He's taking notes, he's reading books. He's, and this is, I think, from English class and then academic literacy, but still not a lot of variety throughout the curriculum, but knows what he's looking for. And now he starts to really flourish through conferencing, where we're seeing stuff. Now we're getting these little blurbs about what they're doing. He's not just identifying, but he's really pointing out. And we've got notes from social studies, we've got English, we've got academic lit, and different classes and different skills that they're starting to look at. He grew even further, continued, more and more places. Now we're looking at STAR scores and monitoring and thinking about his thinking and how he's improving. Again, I'm improving. I know my STAR is going up. Here's different notes from my classes and different things. And this is great. This is first semester. But now we decided, hey, we need to push them even more. So our next step is actually starting to not only identify, so taking these students that are starting to fly and seeing the application, how is this helping? Why are you doing it? So not just identifying the skill, but now taking it to the next level. How this is helping me, why I'm doing it, what is going on when I'm annotating, why am I taking notes for this, why am I reading more, and actually getting them to metacognitively think about how they're using the skills, not just where. So this has been a continual action research with our kids, and we see no matter if they started blank or if they started at a different level, they're growing and they're starting to recognize how, and now we can see second semester why they're doing some of this stuff.
More of that work.
Yep.
All right, so exactly what Dan highlighted, you'll notice that as a team, for the first year, we created these digital portfolios on Google Slides, making it accessible for students, conferencing with them, having weekly uploads because we want to stay consistent with our students, and having them reflect as well as our job to give that timely feedback to them so they continue to grow. And then we did revisit our expectations, and we are working and we're continuing to look closely at this. We reviewed these digital portfolios and we're doing it a second semester. So you'll notice that at the end of the semester, when we did look at our data, 27 out of our 31 students met or exceeded our expectations aligned with our rubric, while 4 are still working on developing that. That's huge. That's great that, I don't know math too well here, I'm an English teacher, but 27 divided by 31, I think it's up in the 80s, I think, right? I think it's like 80% or something like that.
You're close. You're close, yeah, you're close to 80.
Pretty close, right? So thinking back to that 60% for value of subject, and only in one semester, they're starting to pick up on why am I doing this? Why am I doing it not only in my English class or my academic literacy class, but how am I seeing this also in my social studies class? Why is this important? Why should I value this, right? So we're gonna continue, because we're looking ahead, and we're gonna continue to focus on student efficacy in order to increase that value of the subject, as well as classroom belonging, and keep those numbers going up. And our next steps, we are administering the student voice survey in the next 2 weeks. So we should have that data to look at. We have a digital portfolio for second semester. And then we'll be able to take a close look at the samples that we have in front of us and refine our feedback, look at our instruction and assessment methods, and move forward from there. So it is a team effort. And we do want to open it up to questions that you might have. Come up here, Mike.
We know that when they're valuing the subject and they're buying in and belonging, they're gonna grow.
Yeah.
That's like the obstacle. Once we can get in and we have that relationship and we're building it, we can turn around the kids that come in and say, I hate reading. Well, okay, let's do something with that though, because we know we need it and we value the skill. And it's a huge turnaround. And some of these kids, it could actually change the trajectory of the rest of their work here at Stevenson. So.
Wow.
Yes.
So you've been doing this a odd number of years. Do you track how your former students who aren't in the special class, how they're continually doing at school academically?
We see the growth, and we know that we don't completely fix them, I think, in 2 years of academic lit. We haven't totally tracked those 30 kids throughout.
Tara, we definitely look at freshman year growth, sophomore year growth, and the work that they do within the academic literacy class, but that is something we should probably be doing more of, is seeing how they finish that off.
I think you'd want to know how they were as seniors and how they were as juniors.
I think I don't know how it is, I see them in the hall.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I see them in the hall and I remember who they were, and I see that they're engaged in the school community and they're still here. Like, there are kids that I thought weren't going to be still here. And they're still here, and I'm fist pumping them going, right on, you still on track, you're gonna be, I mean, I know anecdotally that we're successful. because I see them in the hall and they're smiling, but
And I
you're
would-
right, we can track their grades.
For sure, and I could step in right before the pandemic, Marla worked with us closely because we wanted that social aspect. We didn't wanna lose the relationship and connection that we had. So we did only have one lunch kind of meeting where it was like an open invitation. Do you guys remember this? This was back in February of 2020, and we opened the invitation to our former students. And I would say, like, from the previous year, maybe one was missing, and that was because they weren't, able to make it because of another commitment. We did it during an activity period, right? Or did we do it during lunch
We
period?
did activity.
An activity period. They all came just to hang out and see us. We could see them and, continue to maintain that relationship that we have outside of the classroom. And I think that was a huge.
And I think after the now that we're getting back into the swing of
Yeah,
things, there's
that's
still a
something.
desire to see how we can keep these kids not in the program, but a part of the program. It's just hard to find the time. Can they come before school? Transportation's an issue. During activity period, well, they have other clubs and we want them to be involved. So it's hard, but we've also tried to do some lunches with SAT work and other things just to entice them to come back, and a little carrot. We've given them a book before in the past. Hey, come have lunch with us. Here's an independent reading book for you. We're still trying to create ways that we can do that. But also after sophomore year, we want them to take electives. So we can't keep taking up this elective time with academic lit. It's a little yin and yang. But we should track grades. My hunch is that these kids are graduating. And they're moving on. And when you start,
There's
and
a
you don't
question.
know what literacy, that's a question.
Yeah.
And I could see the profile of those kids, and it's great.
So I have a thought and a question. First of all, Troy tells me a lot that as a former social studies teacher, I shouldn't do math in public. You did great.
I'll let you know.
27 out of 31 is 87%. You were awesome.
Wow, okay, very good.
Well done.
Very good. Excellent.
But on the action slides.
Wait, how'd you get 87%?
I used the calculator.
I knew it. I was like, there's no way.
You don't do math in public. You told me that.
Just checking.
The action steps, the digital portfolios, Dan, that you mentioned, or that he was mentioning?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you mentioned that?
Yeah.
Were the pictures that you showed of the student work and their evidence, is that
That's
the digital portfolio?
Yeah.
And so all that evidence is submitted by the student, and is it tagged by the student as, or
They
identified?
do all of it.
They do
They're putting the
whatever you
boxes
say.
in there and
Yes.
identify.
That was all
This is their work.
This is the student identifying their own, wow.
Yeah, this
Although
is not us at all.
Yeah, to fixing one
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
here
yeah.
this morning, but everything else.
But I think the important thing that you said, which resonated, and I just wanted to make sure, is that, this is that whole idea of metacognition, that the students are actually learning about reflecting on their own learning through this process, and hitting those targets are really critical. That's amazing.
We pause on Fridays.
Yeah.
And we spend 10 to 15 minutes, and I allow them to go and search and put in their portfolio and work on that.
Wow.
And then at the end of the 3 weeks, they know I'm gonna take it, I'm going to assess them, give them some feedback. What we don't see in here is I also conference with them, and I'll put those notes directly on a slide. So when we're talking about that stuff, it ends up being in that whole slide, it ends up being one slideshow the whole
I'm
semester.
glad you asked that, because I thought they wrote those.
I know.
That's
Oh
awesome.
my gosh, this is the amazing work that they did, yeah.
And
Some
you
of them
know-
are really funny too, like we were
Yeah,
looking,
no, this-
like I didn't correct the all about the barbarians, but
Yes.
that was.
They learned all about the barbarians, no notes from world history, and
Yep.
Yeah, this is them.
And I know our team knows this, but for our board, you may have forgotten your ed psych class, but that whole idea of metacognition really is the jet fuel for learning. Without the ability to reflect on your own learning, it becomes difficult. And so the fact that our kids in academic literacy are able to do this under your guidance, it's really great.
And then
Really great.
applying that to self-awareness,
Yeah.
that this class, again, when kids are assigned to academic literacy, they're not always jumping for joy.
Right.
But when they can see this, that it is playing out, that there's a tool they are using across the curriculum, that's where the value in the subject comes in, and that's where we're hoping to get more leverage as you go through the year.
Very cool.
When and how
It's
are
why they come back voluntarily to hang with
Yeah,
them
yeah,
too.
When and how are they identified? It's not clear to me. Are they identified before they come in as freshmen or during their
freshman year, at what point?
So that's part of the kind of the universal screener that we use as kids come in. We use the STAR test, and also in their initial testing they do a MAP test or a STAR test or something at their center schools. And that's one of the first data pieces that we use to create the options. The academic literacy is not an opt-in or opt-out class. They're placed in there until they show that they have reached the level that we've said this is probably what it takes to be successful at Stevenson. But then they are, it's
the
a same
key
body of evidence.
The key freshman year is that team has developed criteria, because the idea between RTI, intervention, is that tier 2, you should be able to exit out when you demonstrate. So it's semester, if they've met that criteria, we lose kids, right? So when you see those numbers of growth,
don't
we're
hold
talking
them
about
in,
kids
yeah,
that
let
we've
them-
left, all the kids that have been successful freshman year, and we're still closing that gap with the kids that may not have grown freshman year, that grew sophomore year. We're left with 30 kids that really struggle. So they haven't exited, they can still exit at semester, it's sophomore year. We have that criteria, so they know and they have that carrot if they work hard.
And it is rare, but we still have our college prep sophomore and freshman teachers administer the STAR like 2-3 times a semester,
A year.
a year, yes,
Beginning, middle, and
a
end.
year, and we could scoop anyone into the program too, but it's rare that happens, yeah.
If the kid needs it, we
Yeah.
bring them.
And we bring them in.
Do you think focusing on the CASEL competencies is actually more effective? I mean, knowing the value, feeling a sense of belonging, the value of what you're doing, all the other competencies, it's like, it seems even more powerful for these students and other students. I'm really moved by what you're doing. I think this is absolutely fascinating.
I think you're right, and I jump in and I just think, having been doing this for 20 years, right, it's key. You get kids and there's a reason why they come in and they're struggling. And if you can find that and you can unlock it because they trust you and they feel they belong and they know why the work is important, and again, I've had kids go from academic lit to PhD at DePaul. You can unlock the secrets. Look, it's not 100%. Obviously, or else we'd be rich somewhere, winning national championships. But it is really touching to see whether it's the kid that starts with a blank slide or the kid that starts here, where they can go. And again, we're just one piece. We've got teachers all over this building that are coming to us, or we're coming to them, or they're working their tushies off to support these kids who might be reading at an instructional level of 3rd, 4th, 5th grade to read books like Fahrenheit 451. And it's incredible that they're reading history and they're reading the things that they read in biology and chemistry. The teachers work so hard with all of our students, but to get this group to
So how do you identify which of the CASEL competencies is the ones that you want to focus on, or the ones that are most significant?
Well, we start with Lori. Right. We can't forget about that. But it's a matter of looking at this students' voice data, seeing what we've seen. We've all been doing this for years. What we know, and we know that connection with these kids in particular is important. And then matching that with CASEL and looking where our data falls. And then this one just kind of naturally fell, hey, let's look at this and see if we can even up
Trying to find this.
that 60%.
That's what I was just gonna say. I think, Steve, no different than you said, it seems like for this particular group of students, valuing of subject becomes even more important and more critical. I think part of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but especially for those of us who have been using this data for a long time now, initially, you sort of thought naturally it was all about sense of belonging, and we do know that obviously that is important, but as we've gotten more familiar with the data and as we understand the implications in each of our courses, we can start to pinpoint areas where, wait, why is that still so low? How can we really have our students appreciate it in different ways? And then we start to see that general increase across the board.
Fantastic.
Are many of your students English language learners, or is that a different category?
A lot of mine,
Right.
the tier 3.
The tier 3.
And I know this because they're access testing these days, so they're in and out of the classroom. And I know that from their profiles. And that's one part of
Is
it.
that one of the reasons
It's
perhaps
one
that
part.
they haven't quite?
It's one part, and it's a part of why we chose the research-based program that we're using, which is a requirement for tier 3, because it does work on fluency, vocabulary, pronunciation. They've heard words, but sometimes they don't recognize them, so they need to put those two things together. And we work hard at that in my class. I read aloud to them. That hasn't happened in years in their education. And they like that. We talk about when mom, dad, guardian used to read to them. We read a whole novel together for a semester, and they start giving insight and saying, but that's part of rekindling their love, right? I remember when that used to be. That was great. We don't do that for many years in education. And then, but they start to see those connections between words, which is really important for those older language learners.
I'll toss one more thing out there too, Amy. One of the things that we've done is in collaboration with the I won't say world languages, but it's now
Multilingual language.
Yeah, I apologize if I didn't say that.
We have actually started this past year with an academic literacy program where we screen more carefully for kids who have ML in their background. And so they've been funneled into a college prep level class, and we actually have an English teacher collaboratively teaching with a multilingual support teacher in there as well. And we've had good success with that program. So again, if we can support them without taking away the elective, that's part of the goal, is to make that happen. And we're halfway through a pilot program now as well. So.
It's important work. Thanks.
Absolutely. Really great. Thank you guys. This is fascinating.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. You have put up with me for many years.
Bring back the memory.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
You have a good evening.
All right. That brings us to our next item, which is first reading of our approval of textbook recommendations. You can see a preliminary list that Mark has put together for us on the short side, it looks like.
Yeah, they're just 2 books.
Yes, just 2.
Social studies.
In social studies, so US history and macroeconomics. And you'll see that come again to you in March for a approval. In the meantime, if you'd like to see a copy of those, they're in Mark's office on display. You'll also see our human resources report there for you. That will be part of the consent agenda. Just let me know if you have any questions about that. We will not need an executive session following the meeting. And that brings us to the business section. And Sean, we have the audit.
We do. As we've kind of mentioned before, this year's audit was just a little different because of the change in our accounting basis, or our method of accounting, which we changed from a cash basis to a modified accrual basis. There were certainly some, it just took a little bit longer, mostly because we had to wait 90 days for certain things to run out and then make some judgments from there. But Brittany Jardis, who's our Director of Accounting and Fiscal Services, really did an amazing job working with the auditors, making sure that the information that they were requesting was received in a timely manner, but more importantly, reviewing their notes. And I'm very happy to say that much like all of the years previously, we don't have anything significant. There was no misrepresentations in any of our findings, or material misstatements, I guess I should say. And then there were no significant deficiencies in our internal controls as well. So we are going to work on setting up a meeting with the board for those that are interested to meet with our auditors, myself and Brittany as well, to go over that in more detail. But tonight we are just seeking or asking the board to accept and file the audited financial statement for the fiscal year ending June 30th of 2022.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and second. Any questions for Sean on the audit?
Well, were we pleased with their work? Or we wanna think about new auditors or anything next year?
So it's a great question. We did enter into a 3-year engagement when we did our RFP. While there were certainly some hesitations throughout the process, Brittany did a good job of meeting with their partner to talk about our satisfaction or lack thereof at certain times. They agreed that it might not have been their finest moment, but we are all confident moving forward that we'll get the service that they want to deliver and that we expect as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Would you poll the board, please?
Certainly, no.
Aye.
Benyoza.
Aye.
Chow.
Aye.
Gorson.
Aye.
Moons, aye. Tyre.
Aye.
Frost.
Aye.
Carries. 7-0.
Okay, and Sean, we just have one first reading for tonight,
Yeah.
this agreement.
Yeah, just if you recall, we we consolidated much of our storage space and are utilizing a warehouse facility just north of us. It has been an amazing adventure in terms of helping us really allow more construction to go on in our building because we don't have the space for storage. So we did work with Van Vlissingen on an extension, and we should have something for the board in March. And then, of course, you can see, we did also have one FOIA request, not atypical this time of year.
Okay. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
First,
Second.
and the second. Any questions for Sean or Eric about the consent? Would you poll the board, please?
Benyoza.
Aye.
Chow.
Aye.
Gorson.
Aye.
Moons, aye. Tyre.
Aye.
Frost. No.
Aye.
Accepted. 7-0.
All right, and that brings us to, if Alex was the first and the team was the second best part, the third best part of the meeting. We have Alex Stoller and Aaron Wellington here tonight to share a little bit about, oh, well, I'm sorry. Of course, we have Eric Ramos, how could I forget? We have Eric Ramos here as well. Ted Gergen was not able to join us, but this is our great triumvirate of leaders who have been really helping us implement our wellness initiative. So we're very excited for this team to share a little bit about that work, and in particular, the wellness initiative encompasses a lot, but what we wanted this group to do tonight is to really kind of talk us through what's happening in some of our new spaces that went online this year. So I'll turn it over to the team. Fire away.
Before we dive too far into this, what I wanted to also mention, it's really exciting to see the synergy that's taking place between what we're about to talk about and the curricular presentation that you saw earlier, because you're going to see a lot of connections between the work we're trying to do right now and seeing that work carrying over into our curricular team. So it's very, very exciting to say the least. So what we're going to do tonight is talk to you a little bit about how we got to this point with the Wellness Center and where we want to take the Wellness Center in the future. So this all goes back and ties to the portrait of a Stevenson graduate. Commitment to self, others, and commitment to learning. I'm going to circle back to this concept a little bit later in the presentation. And what we're trying to do is enhance the portrait of a graduate by adding what we'll call a portrait of wellness or a portrait of a wellness community here at Stevenson, and the Wellness Center is just a vehicle to help make that happen. So with everything that we've been trying to do, there's intentionality to it, and 3 key components that we're trying to have is clarity about how we're gonna go about doing these things, build competence not only in our students, but in our staff, that they're comfortable and feel competent in teaching these skills, which is what you certainly saw with our curricular team earlier tonight. And then once we build that competence, having a consistent message and consistency throughout the entire building to build what we want our Stevenson community to be. So to give you a historical perspective, how did we get to where we are now? A lot of thought has been going into this for a very long time. And something we really wanted to point out was that that building right over there was not just kind of built on a whim. We know a lot of thought, a lot of intention went into that process. And really the whole process goes all the way back to 2010. That's where we started adding an SEL goal. That's where all this work started, and you're starting to see the evolution and culmination of it tonight with that team that went a little bit earlier than we did. So it got added to our GPIs in 2010. Then we fast forward a little bit. When we were doing this timeline, we were a little shocked at like how recently some of these things actually took place. We didn't change to that 8:30 start time until the 16-17 school year. It feels like it's just been part of what we've been doing for so long, but we really haven't been doing it that long. We moved finals to before break instead of after winter break. We started the Choice PE program. We created a mindful menu and literally changed the way we're serving food here at Stevenson. And that was the first time we had an SEL coordinator. So it really hasn't been that long, and we've made so much progress. Then in 17-18, the portrait of a graduate gets added to the vision statement. 17 to 19 is when the planning and design of the PWC all comes into play. 2020, the gentleman standing to my left, Alex Stoller, who you're going to get to hear from very shortly, was brought on as a wellness consultant to start doing some of this work. We also hired Lavice Haney, Dr. Haney, to be our EDI director. Then we get to now. It's time for the building to be open. We're almost ready, 2022, and I went to Eric and Troy, and I said, we really need to have somebody to run this facility, and we've got the perfect person that's already in the building doing a lot of this work, and that's Alex Stoller. We brought him on to be the wellness coordinator. We added the Wellness Initiative Project to our GPIs, and then August 15th, 2022, we opened the doors to the Wellness Center. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex and Eric now, and they're going to talk a little bit more specifically about what's been taking place in that space since we opened it.
Well, it's lovely to see you all for the first time. Thank you for your service and what you do for the school, for the community. I hear you've been on the board for 20 plus years, so yeah.
30 plus.
Yeah, 30 plus, thank you. So yeah, it's really lovely just being here and being able to talk about what's going on with wellness at Stevenson High School, and of course the vehicle for all of that being the Patriot Wellness Center, the beautiful construction project that now has manifested and the students are really enjoying the space. I graduated Stevenson High School in 2010 for a little context, and it was upon learning about the value of wellness for my health and my performance, namely, that inspired me to change careers, pursue a career in health, get a master's degree in dietetics, and then actually return and provide that service for the students because I saw how impactful it was really for me in my own life and how it enabled me to start to really not just meet my performance goals, but enhance them, but also become just a very well-rounded human being. And that is what led to essentially the design of the pillars of wellness. I'm not going to dig into all of this content too much today because I know I want to keep the scope and the focus on what the Patriot Wellness Center is doing, and that's what we're going to do. Yet there's a ton of thought and effort school-wide now, cross-departmentally, how we're integrating these pillars with specific actionable and engaging steps for students. So the Patriot Wellness Center exists as a place for that to take place essentially, yet this is happening across the school in remarkable ways already. And so the pillars of wellness, just for a little bit of this context and background, are mindset, movement, nutrition, and restoration. It's very clear and obvious when you step into the Patriot Wellness Center that movement or physical activity takes place there, yet these other pillars we are providing opportunities for students to learn about and engage in a variety of ways.
I'm actually asking for a nap room in my office to go for the restoration. That's gonna go.
Sleep is one aspect.
I don't think that made it through the budget process. Nice try.
Trying.
We'll get Troy a pod.
That's actually where I kind of pick up. Alex and I
Napping?
started talking napping. Strong napping over here. I started working with Alex when he was just a consultant at Justin. So when he was consulting last year, when this was becoming a reality that the facility was going to open and it was going to be a movement space, him and I both shared the vision that it needed to be much more than that. Which is why, honestly, the way it's designed, if you walk in there with the where the monitors are placed and the teaching stations, it was really intentional because we knew it's one thing to move kids, but it's another thing to change how they see the world and how they see their own health. You heard that a lot with the team earlier. The intrinsic motivation doesn't just happen, right? You have to give them the fuel to start to think about how they are interacting with this content. So we knew it was going to be that way. We needed to shift our focus, quite frankly, in our curriculum, especially in our PE curriculum, shifting away from movement and more toward all four pillars and where students can interact with all four of those things in our activity-based spaces. So we went to this health span focused curriculum, so it's not just about lifespan and how long you live, but it's also how many healthy years you have. And that has really resonated. Also, we've taken more of a wellness of a day in the day approach, trying to teach kids that how you eat in the morning is different than how you eat at night, and it should be, right? And some of the reasons and the science behind that. And that's all. Those are some of the major changes that are taking place in our PE setting. Oh, and honestly, we've redesigned all of our curriculum, regardless of which PE class, not just choice PE, but all of the PE classes, around a common warm-up that centers around those movement patterns that you see up there. And those are science-based movement patterns that lead to a healthy lifespan. So being able to lunge, being able to hinge, these are things that have been pulled out through the years as key components to living well into adulthood. But it starts now, and it starts when you're young, and that's the kind of the hard part, is getting a kid that's young and vibrant to understand that these are going to matter and to build those patterns, those healthy patterns now. So we just baked it into our warm-ups. No matter what class you're in, you're going to warm up in this way, and they don't think anything of it. They warm up anyway, right? And so in health, it was a little bit of a different ask because health already was engaging in all of the pillars in very authentic ways. So now going into next year and actually a little bit of this year, they are kind of taking apart their curriculum and finding ways to explicitly teach the wellness pillars. So they're attacking it and referencing the wellness pillars as opposed to just talking about wellness more generally. And they're drawing it back to the fact that essentially those pillars all need to be evenly attended to. And so when you have an athlete maybe that thinks movement is the key, right? Teaching them that how restoration and how their mindset will all factor into how they perform. And that's coming in the health classroom. You can get a little more in the weeds in that content. And so we're going to use that platform for that.
And to just piggyback off of that aspect of creating value, just to share a story, I know student B from that previous presentation. I see him in the Patriot Wellness Center all the time after school. Sometimes he sits at the front desk where we have a student staff member typically check students in, and he just wants to be a part of the team. He just wants to be a part of the space. And I can say I was surprised when I saw him up there and kind of laughed to myself because I've seen his growth since day one here, where he kind of came into the space, maybe not with the utmost respectful demeanor, has now transformed into someone who I see contributing value to the space as a whole. And so it's really cool, like Aaron was saying, to kind of see those, how it's transcending, and there's those parallels between what we're doing with wellness, what's happening in the classroom, and how I've observed even a change in student B's disposition, if you will. And so that's really the key mission of the Patriot Wellness Center as a movement space, but also a place where we embody these other pillars of wellness. Is to create an exciting environment where students feel very welcomed. There's a variety of ways to engage in these pillars based on their unique preferences, their backgrounds, etc. So by seeing how students can come in and feel welcomed and valued, it's that sense of belongingness that's being created that I think students are really finding the space to be a useful place to spend their time. And so I'll talk a little bit about what we offer, what that actually looks like. So we have a variety of dynamic movement patterns, which I'll follow up on a slide here. And then we're getting student voice to tell us what they want to see lived out in the space. And then we're doing our best effort to then manifest that for them so that they feel excited about coming to engage in these wellness practices and tying it to a benefit that meets their immediate wants and their immediate desires for their identity. Because, like Eric was saying, it is challenging to have a 14-year-old have the perspective of what does my long-term health, what are the implications for my health span and lifespan, giving them a reason to engage with it now. And I think a huge part of that is just creating exciting offerings and opportunities. And then also helping meet the physiological needs that they have developmentally from nutrition, from restoration, from mindset as well. And so you see that living out in the PWC Cafe and the multi-purpose spaces on the first floor where some of these opportunities are being offered. And then in the actual workout area itself. And so what I'm about to present here is data from the beginning of November through December last year. So that's actually 22 data. Apologies for that. Oh, that's December 21st.
December 21st.
Got it. Okay. That's why dates have 3. Okay. So total attendance was 12,000. So what that means is students scan their ID 12,000 plus times to come enter the space, the PWC, on the 2nd and 3rd floor, the fitness lofts, cardio mezzanine. Uniquely, there were close to 2,000 student attendees. So over 43% of the student body has entered the space. And I can say anecdotally, I've seen a lot of new faces since winter sports kind of are now transitioning into spring sports and athletics. And then clubs are just getting kind of some changeover and engagement. And I've seen a whole bunch of new faces in the space now. And so I'm sure now it's closer to 50% or more of the entire student body has come to use the PWC facilities at some point or another. And then, 2 months. What's that?
That's only 2 months, so that's
Right.
It's ignoring the kids that came.
Yeah, could we maybe at the
That's
end of the year get a year-long, you know, how
Absolutely.
many people
Month by
visited,
month.
how many,
That's
you know,
amazing.
that would be fantastic.
Kids have to scan in, so we have,
Cause
we
to
can
your
break.
point, the sports
Yeah.
seasons and what kids are doing at different times is gonna play into that, so as a total throughout the year, it would be
We can
nice
break
to
it out.
Very
however we
different
want.
faces in September, October than we're seeing in there right now.
see. And but great
Yeah.
number.
And then over the years too, to draw attention to that point, is this data, the colors are representing academic year. So red is freshmen, first year students. So what we're gonna see, this is the first year this place is open, they're gonna evolve through the space. And eventually, there's gonna be new first year students. And I imagine this becoming more of a quadrant where you're seeing the current freshmen who didn't get their lifetime membership or whatever it might be, who aren't driving, who are staying here after school, and they'll continue to do that through their 4 years. So this data will evolve certainly as the year progresses and then as the years progress as well. And then looking at unique attendance by gender, again, I've seen a shift here where this is mostly less skewed toward male participation. And the reason for that being is when we took this data, we noticed the skew toward male participation and started creating offerings that would entice females to come and learn more about how to move their body in a comfortable way. And so we've integrated this data already and we're seeing how that data is shifting and is something that we'll again poll in another month and then again at the end of the year to see how that has affected attendance at the PWC.
And to give you some historical perspective on that as well, of course, we want to increase that female attendance percentage rate. However, when we didn't have the space and we had open weight room every day after school in the West Fitness Center, I can tell you, you could go in there maybe 3 out of 5 days where you didn't see a single female in there working out. It was all males in there. So to see that number is actually fantastic.
What channels are you using to communicate that to the students?
Yeah, great question. I have some more on this, but we can address it now. It's through, we have Wellness Wednesday, which is a regular Wednesday feature in the Daily Digest. My face has been shamelessly featured on a lot of video content that is amateurishly assembled but effective in communicating what we're offering in the PWC, as well as through the different departments, through the physical welfare department, through student activities departments, and then also through even engaging through SSTs in the student services department, informing kids about what it is that we offer and how it might facilitate a heightened sense of well-being for them. And just an interesting note on that is that this is a preventative or intervention method for a lot of students who can learn that just a little bit of movement daily is actually what they needed to feel de-stressed. And I know it's kind of getting away from the how are students finding out about it, but when it is through a counselor that they find out that we have this movement program offered that they want to engage in and they come and engage in it, they're really kind of blowing off steam and it's helping them return to school the next day energized.
Wouldn't you also say probably the best advertisement for kids to use the facility after school is the use of the facility during the school day at PE, right?
Like so, our numbers mirror a lot. So the female participation in our strength classes have traditionally been very low, and now they're higher than they've ever been. And so we piggyback off each other a lot on ways that, and we need to honestly continue to grow in our partnership in that. In advertising in our classes, what is offered after school, and I think he does a really nice job after school of advertising what's available during the day.
So just as a reminder, and maybe this goes without saying, but a lot of this data that he's sharing is all the after-school programming from 4 to 8-ish.
Right.
So this doesn't even count all the usage that it's getting literally all day long in our PE classes.
And I want to thank Jamie too, because her team has played a huge role in helping us construct our communication strategy, right? Her team's area of expertise in that has been just absolutely tremendous, and I've created some great relationships with the people on our team that have really just helped us in communicating this out. So these are some of the programs that we offer by name. You will recognize yoga and Zumba. These are popular group fitness classes that also have a de-stressing component to it, if you will, through music and dance, through the restorative practice of yoga, and then also Patriot Performance Training, where we've seen a lot of female participation, and that is a lot of athletes coming in off-season to train together from different teams, which has been really exciting and cool to see. I like coaching that myself because it's something fun for me to do, and I think the students like it too. And one-on-one fitness training that we are offering with our wellness coaches, a few of whom we've hired through Rebound Fitness, and they're there every day. We have at least 2 of them there every day, essentially floor coaching, seeing that students are using equipment safely and moving their bodies effectively and providing on-the-spot spontaneous coaching for how to move better, and then also directing them towards something just a little more structured. We've found that students love coming in and having open gym and having free time, but there is that subset that desire a deeper knowledge or a deeper fitness literacy, and they want to work with someone to kind of gain that knowledge and have the accountability to just foster better movement habits. And this is that piece about how our communications across departments through the school are really creating this culture of wellness And it is very collaborative with all the different departments and focusing on really what those pillars of wellness are and what they actually mean, and creating really clear and consistent messaging that ultimately will enable all the adults in this building and the students to feel more competent and confident in their wellness practices. And so there are many events and things taking place outside of the Patriot Wellness Center, and we're not gonna really spend too much time on that today, but just to mention that this is how we are communicating about it and working toward a culture of wellness.
Go ahead and leave that one up just a second.
Yeah.
So two of the greatest things that have occurred that were not even on our radar when we were planning to open this space that have helped contribute to a culture of wellness. The first day it was open, we had over 400 kids show up. And we were like, how are we gonna staff this facility? Well, what we've done, we have about 15 students that work in the space now. And they've become like this cohesive team, and they love it. Some of them work on the communications piece with Jamie and her team. Some of them, we have one guy, Nick, who has become like the manager, so to speak. So it's really created this tight-knit group of kids that enjoy working in the space, and they take ownership of the space. The other thing that happened that we really didn't expect was what's happened in the turf area. The best analogy I can give you is if you went on a college campus and walked through a quad in the middle of a school day, that's what it looks like on the turf. Right after school, the kids come pouring in. You'll have a group of kids that's just playing pepper with a volleyball, 8 or 10 kids in a circle. You'll have some kids playing spike ball. We actually had an unofficial world championship spike ball tournament that was like a 3-week event that ended on Friday. Kids just passing a football around, or things like that in the space that we didn't think that was gonna happen. And that's one of their favorite things to do in there. And it's creating this culture in that space that you don't just have to come in here to lift weights. There's so much more going on in the space than just that. So it's really been great. So that's where we're at. Where are we hoping to go? So you can see some things on there that we're hoping to move toward in the future. And some of these things are already in the works and taking place. The closest thing is our Freshman Experience Day, which is going to happen in April. We're going to be tying in the concepts of Portrait of a Graduate and the Pillars of Wellness into the Freshman Experience Day. We're working with a team of directors, teachers, to create various lessons that the students are going to take part in on that day that tie directly into the 4 pillars of wellness. So that's something that we're working on as we speak. Next school year, we're hoping to introduce this concept of a portrait of a community. It's not just a portrait of a graduate, it's a portrait of what we want the student and staff and the community of the Stevenson community to look like and work in partnership together. So we have this common messaging that we're giving to the students at school, that the staff is giving to the students in the classroom, and then that messaging is going on when they get home too. So everyone is contributing to this community of wellness. Some things we're looking at long-term, there are some curricular things that Lori Feinzimmer and Lavise Haney are working on as we speak to introduce some things potentially in the future. We've even explored an idea of something like a wellness odyssey to promote wellness within the school for our students. And then what we really want to help expand this to in the future is we don't want this just to be a Stevenson High School thing. We want to extend this message and this concept of wellness down to our feeder districts and have this thing start taking place when these kids are in 1st, 2nd grade, and then it just carries all the way through to their high school experience at Stevenson. So we have a lot of ideas in our heads. Year 1 it was build it and they will come, and we've definitely got them coming. So now it's just expanding on that in the future. So thank you for the opportunity to be in that space. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's funny, Aaron, I was at an event, an Illinois State School Board event, Grace was with me, and just talking to the school board president from District 96. He said, oh, your wellness center, it's all I hear about, everybody wants to. So it's already out there in the feeders about, the teachers are jealous and they're getting some, so that may come.
those numbers will increase.
Yeah.
To whoever made the point about 30-something% of our freshmen, that, if it's 30% every year, now all of a sudden, we've got the Weisberg problem, you know?
Was that 30% of the freshmen or 30% of the people attending?
Fresh.
30%
of the people that-
37%.
30% of the people who are attending were freshmen.
Yeah.
But of, how many kids, those are hundreds and hundreds of kids.
Right,
It's
there is,
amazing.
yeah.
That number's just gonna grow exponentially. Any other
So
questions?
one comment I wanna make, like for the female participation, I can see that really happening in my family, because I got a daughter, she's a sophomore. So at the beginning of the year, when PWS just opened and she paused, because she's telling me, Mom, there are no more female girls in the workout like this, oh man stuff, right? And I was like, why don't you try? And right now, she's going to PWS almost every single day. And with her female friends, they really enjoying working on the machines. So I was so proud of her. So
Yeah,
thank you for
that's great to
promoting
hear,
this female,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have you all identified, it was interesting to hear also just the shift from the old weight room to the PWC and what that looked like demographically. Have you identified any other real or perceived barriers to access within the student community? Are there other things that you're seeing that are keeping people out, or pieces of our community, segments of our community that you'd like to see come in more?
Yeah, great question. We've worked with the foundation a bit to, especially for students who do qualify for additional benefits, to have them be equipped to actually come to the PWC with what they're wearing through the Jalen Brunson Foundation and what they've done to make donations to provide some of that gear. And then we have also met with specific intervention as well as other areas that there might be an additional barrier for feeling comfortable in the space to address their specific needs. It gets really complex, especially when you start talking about like body image and potential for identifying disordered eating patterns, comfortability with movement, that we're creating a streamlined way to identify when a student might have that challenge. And then right now, what's in place is that myself or a wellness coach would meet with them actually in a one-on-one setting or context, if that's what they're comfortable with, to kind of talk through some of those like main challenges and barriers that you see commonly in, I guess, wellness spaces in general. And so, yeah, both from an organizational perspective, we're doing what we can and definitely can improve on how we're addressing that, and then trying to also do that on a one-on-one level.
And a little shout out to our alum Jalen Brunson, who made a significant donation to our foundation with the specific, and will be for the next few years, but with the specific focus on supporting our traditionally unrepresented students in that space with financial support. So it's been great. So everything from clothing to other supports for kids has been instrumental in helping us to get more students into that space. So.
How have we done reaching out to our handicapped students?
Great question. There are a number who I haven't seen that I think were either have a history of being physically handicapped in the space. That's actually a great point, that something that we can take back and consider more strongly.
Something I can mention too, actually, they just, a representative from the ELC just reached out to Eric and I last week, asking if there would be a possibility of them getting some space in there to do some things with some of their.
Oh, no, they've actually been coming this year. So I've been working with the ELC. They come during the day. There's certain times of the day that it's there's more freedom. There's fewer students in certain spaces that we worked out, facilitated with the teachers that typically use that space, and we provide them access pretty much whenever they want or need it. We've been able to work around them so that they feel comfortable and they can be in that space and experience it like every other student.
So how will you assess over time the success of wellness, either through the castle competencies, or how will you devise your metrics besides the number of kids that are using it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So wellness habits in and of themselves are trackable through adherence. And so when we are creating either curricular intervention, we're providing assessment to assess their literacy about the wellness habits and behaviors themselves. An example of that would be, can I tell the difference between a more highly processed food versus a relatively less processed food? Can I actually identify that on a spectrum? Defining a desired behavior that they wish to adhere to over time to build a new health habit, and then having the cueing of, and this is something that we're doing in physical welfare, that's why I'm looking to Eric here also, to build upon like their adherence tracking. So I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so we have a assessment process, there are SLOs, I'm sure you've heard of this term before. So this year, the choice team is redesigning their SLOs, we've had the same SLO for quite a long time. We're tearing that apart, we're gonna rebuild it around the wellness pillars. And a lot of that's content knowledge, but quite frankly, I think a lot of the barriers to being well come from a lack of understanding the choices that we're making, how they're impacting our health and our wellness. So we're gonna start with the bottom, right, the foundational components of understanding what and why you're consuming, what you're consuming, and the choices that we make and how they impact you, and then we're gonna assess them on that, their knowledge of that, and then we're gonna build upon that to have them reflect in their own way. And this is the key component to this whole thing is, and Alex and I talked extensively about this, how a person comes into this conversation is very different. And even though we might look the same and sound the same, we are coming at all of the pillars in our own way, and it changes day to day oftentimes. So it's so important that kids have an opportunity to understand what they're reflecting upon, and then the opportunity to actually reflect upon what and why they're choosing what they choose.
I think there's other ways too that, we would have to, I'm not sure you would ever be able to determine causality, but, the Illinois Youth Survey, presents some really, interesting data about our kids', mental health. That would be data that, 4 or 5 years from now, you'd love to see kind of some of those indicators reflect, kids' more positive feelings about themselves and kind of where they're at.
Yes.
Yeah,
Data
the
actually,
student voice survey data,
valuing the subject just went up this year considerably. We're actually outperforming the school in valuing the subject, which is the first time that's ever happened.
Wow.
So
yeah. So, and I think the fitness testing that's required by the state, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we could assess it, but again, how do you determine causality? You know what I mean? I think generally speaking, our hope is that on a number of different indicators, you would see improvement. And I think, in some cases we already are, and that's really great. I think what is so exciting about this, and this is part of the reason why Troy and I have been so passionate about this for so long, is that everything that this team is doing just works hand in hand with what Lori and members of our student services team are doing with our SEL initiative. And so to us, this was always like the yin yang, you can't have one without the other. And so, very often when we see Alex, here in the district office, which is always great to see you, he's often meeting with Lori, and members of the student services team. So having those, two parts now working together, I think is really powerful. So I actually think that eventually we would like to see, some of the data reflecting how our kids are doing with their own mental health, be improved as well. That's my hope.
Yeah.
But it'll take a little bit of time.
It's fantastic.
Can I have you guys go back to just slide 9 on the Patriot Wellness Center Experience Wellness for a second?
I was gonna ask you about this, but I
There.
didn't wanna involve them in this, cause I don't
Yeah.
think this is, we are hearing a bit that maybe that wall is not doing so well.
So in the background there,
It was doing great, it was doing great that day.
That was like the second day we wrote.
Apparently your presentation's over, so now new topic.
I figured it was just an easy segue.
Well, I didn't wanna put them in.
So, no, they did an amazing job.
Yeah, you guys, thank you guys very much.
Thank you for running away.
You did a great job. And Sean, you want to point out very quickly?
Yeah, very quickly, I just want to point out and follow up. The living wall in the PWC has been a little bit of a sore spot for me as well, I'm sure for you guys as well. because it's not fully developed. I'm happy to say that the plantings will be occurring very shortly. We have been involved with some back and forth with the manufacturer and designer of the wall. We're hoping to avoid a legal confrontation. But
most importantly, do they have the root cause? Did they determine the cause?
we have determined the cause, and it was not us.
Great.
Can we just, while we're talking about it, remind everybody the purpose of the, I mean, we're talking about wellness, we're talking about mental health, we're talking, you know, about the building in general. Can we just kind of go over that briefly?
Sure, like just the larger scale, like.
Larger scale, I mean, the carbon net zero,
Yeah.
just all of the impacts that it has on our students. It's
Yeah.
not just a
So
plant.
in addition to, in addition to all the benefits that were talked about today, the living wall does reduce our energy need. Think of it as a giant furnace filter that recycles or that takes carbon dioxide and particulates out of the air and allows us to recirculate air or oxygen that is cleaner but already at room temperature or the temperature that we want it, so we don't have to spend energy heating or cooling it. We do have a full megawatt solar panel array on top of our roof that provides enough electricity to supply the field house for an entire year, so our field house is in fact net zero. And then of course there's just that idea of biophilic design where you can bring the outdoors in to kind of bring that, I don't want to say calm, but for lack of a better word, that calm, that ambience. There are many students that will just say, I've heard them say in the hall when we did the first one, they're like, boy, I just thought it was kind of cool and I like hearing the water drip down, right? Like it's just relaxing. So those are just a couple of them. Obviously the natural daylight helps as well because the more we can get away from the artificial light, even if it is LED, the better off our students will be.
So how many living wall we're having right now in the building? Two or three?
We have two in the East Building addition that was first opened in 2019. Those were 2-story walls, and then this one, in essence, is a 3-story living wall that's quite big. And what's unique about this one is that the water is coming from a rain harvesting cistern that we have. So we're collecting the rainwater and we're using the rainwater that's collected from our campus.
I think it's important to note too, we're talking about the wellness center and the swipes are just to get into the fitness part.
Correct.
So the stairs and the gathering place and all of that, if you walk through there,
Yeah.
it's packed. It is
6
absolutely
o'clock
packed.
could
Overnight, this has become the primary place on campus that students just wanna be and wanna hang out
That's
and,
exactly what we wanted it designed
it's exactly
to.
what we wanted,
I
yeah.
was
it
on
it
duty on a Friday night about 3 weeks ago, and it was amazing. There was probably 150 kids on the first floor in the common area. You went into the field house on court 1. We had kids warming up for the pack swim meet we had going on. On court 2 was a warm-up court for the conference dance competition that was going on with JV and varsity. And then courts 3, 4, 5, and 6 were Junior Patriot basketball games. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm curious about the bubble tea selling.
How
about that?
Bubble tea.
Bubble tea.
And the acai bowls.
top
The
seller.
acai bowls are still flying off the shelf.
Bubble teas,
It's
depends on the day.
Yeah.
all right. Anything else about that? Okay, moving along.
Very much.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, really
Thank
great.
you so much.
Just a couple more items before we let you go. Just want to note that March 3rd is our consortium-wide professional development day. So you know that our 3 largest feeder districts, District 96, 102, and 103, and us here at Stevenson, we all block usually that first Friday in March as our consortium-wide institute day. And every other year, we do, under the leadership of CASA and our own Mark Onishek, we do a consortium-wide professional development day. So you can see the work that Mark and his team have put together to offer learning opportunities for each of our divisions on that day. So thank you, Mark, for all that hard work. We appreciate you. Also, you can see a current enrollment report. You'll see that currently we have 4,000, well, I don't want to say currently, I'll say on February 8th because this number moves. This moves so often. On February 8th, we had 4,542 students here enrolled at Stevenson. The enrollment projections were for 4,563, so pretty darn close. They continue to do, thank you, Alex, they continue to do a really great job. Our projected enrollment for our freshman class is 1,125, but those are butts in seats, so to speak.
Correct.
That does not include the on average of anywhere from 50 to 75, sometimes 100 students. That would be on the high end. With interest rates the way they are, it may be on the lower end of 50 kids moving into the district, but I wouldn't be surprised if that number was 1,200 freshmen for next year. So we just wanted to share that with you, that we continue to have a growing enrollment and that Decision Insight continues to be fairly accurate.
And we have another report coming in about a month.
Right, so wanted to share that with you. And then also just wanted to make note, although we won't ask you to approve the calendar for board meetings for next year until we are allowed to do so in May, we will be recommending that the June board meeting be moved to Tuesday, June 12th, due to the Juneteenth holiday. So we just want to make you aware of that. It's tentative right now, but that is a required non-school day for schools in the state of Illinois. So, sorry, yeah, June 12th. That would be a Monday though.
It's June
Are we in
20th.
school anyway?
No, June 12th, which is gonna be a Monday. So, we will finalize that, but Monday, June 12th is what the
Even though
tentative-
we're not in school anyway. We're in summer school.
Right.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
We're ready.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank
First
you.
and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?